The mahogany doors of Harrison International's boardroom felt heavier than usual as I pushed them open that morning. 24 pairs of eyes turned to me, none friendly, all waiting. My Uncle Marcus's smirk told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a regular quarterly meeting. I'm Alexander Harrison, and until exactly 9:47 a.m. that Thursday morning, I was the Chief Strategy Officer of Harrison International, a company my grandfather built from nothing into a $12 billion energy infrastructure giant. More importantly, I was the one who had spent the last 3 years building our Middle Eastern partnerships, particularly the landmark $2 billion Saudi development deal that would transform the company's future. "Sit down, Alexandra," Uncle Marcus commanded from the head of the table, my father's old seat. He'd claimed it after Dad's heart attack last year, along with the CEO position that should have been mine. "We have serious matters to discuss." I took my usual seat, calm despite the tension crackling through the air. My hand instinctively touched the small silver pendant at my neck, a gift from my father, and unknown to everyone else in the room, a high-fidelity recording device. I'd started wearing it to meetings 6 months ago, when I first noticed documents disappearing from my office and private conversations mysteriously reaching our competitors. "The board has convened this emergency session," Marcus continued, shuffling papers importantly, "to address grave concerns about the company's strategic direction, specifically regarding our Middle Eastern expansion." My heart rate picked up, but I kept my face neutral. I'd expected this, planned for it even. The Saudi deal was too big, too transformative for Marcus to let me complete it. Success would have cemented my position as the natural heir to Harrison International. "Our review indicates gross mismanagement of the Saudi negotiations," he declared, his voice dripping with fake concern. "Unauthorized promises, misrepresented capabilities, and frankly, amateur handling of delicate cultural sensitivities." The lies rolled off his tongue smoothly. He'd clearly been practicing. Around the table, board members nodded gravely. Most were Marcus's golf buddies or business school classmates, installed over the years through careful maneuvering. "That's absolutely false," I stated calmly, pulling out my tablet. "I can show you the detailed negotiation records." "No need," Marcus cut me off. "We've seen enough. Prince Abdullah's office has already expressed serious reservations about continuing our partnership." Now that was interesting. I'd spoken with Adil, Prince Abdullah's chief advisor, just yesterday. There had been no reservations, only excitement about next week's contract signing. "Harrison International requires leadership that understands the complexities of global business," Marcus continued. "Not someone promoting their personal agenda over company interests." I almost laughed at the irony. Marcus, who'd never worked a day outside Connecticut, lecturing me about global business. I'd spent 5 years in our Dubai office, learned Arabic, built relationships across the region while he played politics in Hartford. Therefore, he straightened his tie with satisfaction. "The board has unanimously voted to terminate your employment, effective immediately." The room fell silent. This was his moment of triumph, orchestrated down to the last detail. Security waiting outside, my office already being packed up, probably a press release drafted announcing my resignation to pursue other opportunities. I stood slowly, gathering my things with deliberate calm. "I assume you've informed Prince Abdullah's team of this change in leadership." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Marcus's face. "That's no longer your concern." "Of course," I smiled, thinking of the WhatsApp message I'd sent to Adil this morning, warning him to watch the live stream of this meeting through the security camera feed I'd given him access to. "I'll have my office cleared by noon." Security will escort you out now, Marcus said sharply. We can't risk you accessing sensitive information. As two guards appeared at the door, I turned to face the board one last time. Just remember, Uncle Marcus, in business, as in family, trust is everything. Once broken, it's almost impossible to rebuild. He waved his hand dismissively. Save the lectures, Alexandra. You're done here. I let the guards lead me out, past shocked employees, and through the marble lobby of the building my grandfather had built. My phone was already buzzing with messages, but I ignored them all except one, a single line from Antil. We saw everything. Call me. In my car, I finally allowed myself a small smile as I reached for the silver pendant. The recording would be useful, but it wasn't my real insurance policy. No, Marcus had done exactly what I expected, exactly what I needed him to do. He just didn't know it yet. I drove to my apartment in the city, a space that had seen little use given my usual 80-hour work weeks. The modern furnishings and floor-to-ceiling windows offered a perfect view of Harrison Tower, where Marcus was undoubtedly celebrating his victory. Opening my laptop, I connected to a secure server and began downloading files. Thousands of documents, emails, and recordings I'd been carefully collecting over the past 6 months. Every questionable deal, every manipulated report, every secret board meeting where Marcus and his allies had plotted against my father's vision for the company. My phone rang. Adil's private number. Your uncle is a fool, he said without preamble. The prince is furious. That man doesn't understand the first thing about respect or family honor. No, I agreed. He doesn't. But he understands greed perfectly well. We're withdrawing from all negotiations with Harrison International, Adil confirmed. The prince has already signed the termination papers. But Alexandra, he's very interested in your alternative proposal. I looked at the business plan open on my screen. 3 years of work, carefully hidden from Marcus and his spies. A new company, built on my expertise and connections, designed to do everything Harrison International could have done better, cleaner, more ethically. Tell His Highness I'll be in Riyadh next week, I said. And Adil. Make sure Marcus knows exactly why the deal fell apart. After hanging up, I spent the next few hours organizing the evidence I'd gathered. The recordings would prove useful eventually, but not yet. First, I'd let Marcus deal with the chaos of losing the Saudi contract. Let him face the board's questions, the shareholders' anger, the media's speculation. My father had always told me, in our business, patience is more powerful than any weapon. He'd built Harrison International on that principle, taking time to develop relationships, earn trust, create real value. Marcus thought he'd won by forcing me out. He didn't realize he just freed me to do what I'd been preparing for all along. The company my grandfather built might be lost to greed and betrayal, but its legacy would live on, just not in the way Marcus expected. My phone buzzed again, a news alert this time. Harrison International's stock had dropped 12% on rumors of the Saudi deal's collapse. Another message followed, this one from my father's old friend on the board. What have you done? Nothing yet, I whispered, touching the silver pendant. But tomorrow everything changes. Standing at my window, watching the sun set behind Harrison Tower, I felt a strange mix of sadness and anticipation. The company had been my life, my legacy, my future. Now it was my past. But as I reviewed my plans for what came next, I couldn't help but smile. Marcus thought he'd written the end of my story. He didn't realize he just helped me begin a new one. The real work would start tomorrow. But tonight, I had one more call to make, to a small but influential investment bank in Dubai, run by Prince Abdullah's cousin. After all, a new company would need funding, and I knew exactly where to find it. My uncle had taught me one valuable lesson. In business, like in war, you don't just plan for the battle in front of you. You plan for the war to come. 3 days after my dramatic exit from Harrison International, I sat in my home office watching Marcus unravel on live television. The business news ticker told the story. Harrison International stock plunges 31% as Saudi deal collapses. CEO Marcus Harrison to address shareholders. My uncle looked nothing like the smug victor who'd fired me earlier that week. His silk tie was slightly askew, dark circles shadowed his eyes, and sweat beaded on his forehead as he faced the press. The temporary suspension of negotiations with our Saudi partners is merely a standard review process, he insisted, his voice lacking its usual confidence. Harrison International remains committed to our Middle Eastern expansion strategy. I muted the TV as my secure phone line rang. The caller ID showed a Dubai number. Alexandra, Prince Abdullah's smooth voice filled my ear. I trust you're enjoying the morning news? Immensely, Your Highness, I replied, suppressing a smile. Though I suspect Marcus isn't sharing your entertainment. Indeed not. Especially after this morning's meeting with our banking consortium. The prince's tone carried a hint of satisfaction. They've frozen the preliminary financing for all Harrison International projects in the region. Your uncle seems to lack your delicate touch with relationship management. I thought of the hundreds of hours I'd spent building those relationships, the late-night meetings, the careful negotiations, the respect earned through understanding their culture and business practices. Marcus had assumed those connections would transfer to him automatically. His first mistake of many. Thank you for your support, Your Highness. I hope to repay your confidence soon. About that, he said, my team has reviewed your proposal. We're very interested, but some of our partners have concerns about potential litigation from Harrison International. Actually, I opened my laptop, pulling up a secure folder. I've prepared detailed documentation addressing those concerns. Would tomorrow be too soon to present it to your legal team? The prince chuckled. Always prepared, aren't you? Very well. My jet will be at Teterboro Airport at 9 a.m. Don't worry about a visa. It's been arranged. After ending the call, I turned back to the TV. Marcus was still talking, making promises he couldn't keep about contracts that no longer existed. Part of me felt guilty watching my family's company implode, but I pushed the feeling aside. Marcus had made his choice when he betrayed not just me, but everything my grandfather and father had built. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen, my father's former executive assistant who now worked for Marcus. He's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Completely panicking. Thought you should know. I'd stayed in touch with Sarah after my father's heart attack, recognizing a kindred spirit who valued loyalty over politics. She'd been my eyes and ears inside Harrison International for months, warning me about Marcus's schemes long before he made his move. Thanks, I texted back. Stay safe. Things might get rough soon. Opening my laptop, I began reviewing the presentation I'd prepared for Prince Abdullah's team. The plan was ambitious. A new company that would revolutionize energy infrastructure development across the Middle East and North Africa. Sustainable technologies, local partnerships, and transparent operations. Everything Harrison International should have been, but wasn't under Marcus's leadership. My phone buzzed again. Another news alert. Harrison International faces shareholder lawsuit over Saudi deal collapse. Right on schedule. I'd known the lawsuit was coming. Martin Ross, one of our largest institutional investors, had called me yesterday, furious about the deal's collapse. I'd expressed appropriate sympathy and casually mentioned certain board meeting minutes that might interest his legal team. Documents that showed Marcus had been warned repeatedly about misrepresenting the company's capabilities to Middle Eastern partners. The doorman buzzed. My evening appointment had arrived. David Parker, Harrison International's former chief financial officer, stepped into my apartment looking nervous but determined. My father had hired David 20 years ago, and Marcus had forced him into early retirement last year. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, setting his briefcase on my dining table. "Once we start, there's no going back." I poured us both coffee, strong and black, the way we drunk it during late nights at the office reviewing contracts and financial projections. "Marcus made his choice," I said firmly. "Now it's time to make ours." David nodded, opening his briefcase. "I've gone through everything you sent me. The pattern is clear: systematic manipulation of project costs, hidden fees, inflated profit projections. Marcus wasn't just trying to push you out, he was setting up a massive fraud." "Show me," I said, pulling my chair closer. For the next 3 hours, we pored over financial statements, internal audits, and project reports. David's expertise revealed what I'd suspected but couldn't prove. Marcus had been cooking the books for years, hiding losses and inflating profits to maintain control of the board. "The Saudi deal would have exposed everything," David explained, pointing to a particularly creative bit of accounting. "The level of scrutiny from their auditors would have uncovered all of this. That's why he had to stop it. And why he had to get rid of me," I added. I knew too much about the real numbers. Exactly. David sat back, looking tired, but satisfied. "What's your next move?" I walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. "Tomorrow, I meet with Prince Abdullah's team in Riyadh. Next week, we launch Harrison Global Partners." "Using your mother's maiden name," David noted. "Nice touch." "The Harrison name still means something in this industry," I said, "just not at Harrison International anymore." David was quiet for a moment. "Your father would be proud, you know. Not just of the business plan, but of how you've handled all this. Taking the high road, building something new instead of just seeking revenge." I thought of my father, remembering our last conversation before his heart attack. He'd warned me about Marcus, made me promise to protect his legacy. At the time, I'd thought he meant the company. Now I understood he meant something more important: integrity, vision, the right way of doing business. "Will you come with me?" I asked David. "I need a CFO I can trust." He smiled, gathering his papers. "I thought you'd never ask. Someone has to keep your books straight." After David left, I spent another hour refining my presentation for tomorrow. The pieces were falling into place: financing from Prince Abdullah's consortium, operational expertise from David and other former Harrison International executives Marcus had pushed out, contracts ready to be signed with key clients who had followed me. My phone buzzed one last time that night. An email from Adil. "Board meeting didn't go well for your uncle. 3 directors resigned. Others asking questions about financial reports. He's scared." Good, I thought. He should be. The next morning, as my car approached Teterboro Airport, I saw the Harrison International logo on a billboard. My grandfather's signature turned into a corporate symbol. Soon that logo would be as outdated as Marcus's way of doing business. My new company's logo was already designed, incorporating elements of Islamic geometry with modern clean lines. A bridge between cultures, just like our business model. Prince Abdullah's team had seen preliminary sketches and approved enthusiastically. The private jet waited on the tarmac, its engines already warming up. As I climbed the stairs, I remembered another flight 5 years ago, my first trip to Dubai, sent by my father to learn the business from the ground up. I'd been nervous then, unsure of my place in the family empire. Now, boarding another plane to the Middle East, I felt only certainty. Marcus thought he'd ended my career. Instead, he'd forced me to create something better, something truly mine. My phone buzzed as I settled into my seat. Sarah again. Marcus just fired the entire Middle East division. Complete chaos here. I turned off my phone as the jet began taxiing. Let Marcus burn bridges. I was building new ones. The 14-hour flight to Riyadh gave me time to perfect my presentation and review the contracts David had prepared. Everything had to be perfect. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was about showing a better way to operate in a complex global environment. I thought about the recordings still saved in my silver pendant, evidence of Marcus's lies and manipulation. I hadn't released it yet, hadn't needed to. His own actions were doing more damage than any exposed secrets could. As the plane crossed the Atlantic, I opened my father's old notebook, a leather-bound journal he'd carried for 30 years. His business philosophy was scattered throughout its pages. Wisdom I'd only now begun to fully appreciate. Success in business, he'd written, is like playing chess. You don't win by making the most aggressive moves. You win by positioning yourself so carefully that your opponent's own moves become their undoing. Marcus was aggressive, playing for quick wins and immediate gratification. I was playing a longer game, one that would reshape not just one company, but an entire industry. The sun was setting over the Saudi desert when we began our descent into Riyadh. In the fading light, the modern skyline looked like something from a science fiction movie, a vision of the future rising from ancient sands. My future was out there too, waiting to be built. Tomorrow, I would stand before Prince Abdullah and his advisors, not as a displaced heir to a troubled company, but as the founder of something new and transformative. Marcus had taught me one final lesson. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover what you're truly capable of building. As the plane touched down, my phone reconnected to the network. Dozens of messages waited, but only one mattered. From Martin Ross, the institutional investor. Board meeting leaked. Marcus claiming Saudi deal collapsed due to your interference. Demanding investigation. I smiled, thinking of the documents waiting in my briefcase. Proof of every real reason the deal had failed, every lie Marcus had told, every ethical line he'd crossed. Let him investigate. Let him dig deeper. The hole he was digging would only make his fall more spectacular. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new battles to fight. But tonight, watching the Riyadh lights grow closer, I felt only peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you were meant to do. Marcus thought he'd written my ending. He didn't realize he'd only written my beginning. The Riyadh sun was just rising when my phone rang. Sarah's voice was urgent. Alexandra, turn on CNBC now. I flicked on the hotel room's television just in time to see the breaking news banner. Harrison International CEO Marcus Harrison steps down amid financial scandal. Emergency board meeting called. My uncle's carefully constructed world was crumbling, faster than even I had anticipated. 3 weeks had passed since my presentation to Prince Abdullah, and his team. 3 weeks that had changed everything. The board received an anonymous package this morning, Sarah continued. Full documentation of every fraudulent transaction, every manipulated report. They're saying the SEC has opened a formal investigation. I touched the silver pendant at my neck, still containing a standing recording, still unused. I hadn't needed it. Marcus had done exactly what I'd expected. As pressure mounted, he'd gotten sloppy, desperate, started making mistakes. How bad is it? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Bad, Sarah confirmed. The auditors found everything. Hidden accounts, inflated contracts, millions in unauthorized consulting fees. Some board members are already calling for criminal charges. I turned up the volume as a financial analyst appeared on screen. This could be the biggest corporate fraud case since Enron. The question isn't whether Harrison International will survive, but in what form. My other phone, the secure line, buzzed with a text from Prince Abdullah. Time for phase 2. Yes, I replied. Launch everything. Within hours, press releases went live across 3 continents. Harrison Global Partners, my new company, announced major infrastructure contracts with Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, totaling over $5 billion in projects. The same projects Harrison International had lost, now restructured and improved. But we weren't just taking their contracts. We were taking their best people too. David Parker, now my CFO, had spent weeks quietly recruiting key executives and project managers from Harrison International. People who'd been marginalized under Marcus's leadership, who believed in my father's vision of ethical, sustainable business practices. Alexandra, my assistant, knocked on the hotel room door. Prince Abdullah's car is here. The drive through Riyadh's bustling financial district felt surreal. Massive digital billboards already displayed our new company logo, modern yet respectful of traditional design, just like our business model. In the prince's private office, dozens of people waited. Business leaders, government officials, media representatives. This wasn't just another contract signing. This was a statement about the future of international business in the region. My friends, Prince Abdullah began, standing to address the room. Today we witness not just the birth of a new company, but a new way of doing business. Harrison Global Partners represents everything we value. Respect for tradition while embracing innovation, profit with purpose, partnerships built on trust. I caught my reflection in the window as I walked to the podium. Power suit perfectly pressed, mother's pearls at my neck beside the silver pendant, father's journal in my briefcase. 3 generations of Harrison business wisdom, reimagined for a new era. Thank you, Your Highness, I began. When my grandfather founded Harrison International 50 years ago, he believed business could be both profitable and principled. That vision got lost somewhere along the way, but it wasn't destroyed. It was just waiting for the right moment to be reborn. As I outlined our plans, renewable energy infrastructure, local workforce development, transparent governance, I saw heads nodding, faces lighting up with recognition. This was what they'd wanted all along, not just projects and profits, but true partnership. My phone buzzed discreetly. Another message from Sarah. Marcus just tried to delete the server backups. It stopped him. He's barricaded in his office with security outside. I pushed the image aside, focusing on the contracts being passed around the table. Signature after signature, handshake after handshake. Years of relationship building paying off in ways Marcus had never understood. Back in my hotel suite that evening, I finally allowed myself to watch the full coverage of Harrison International's implosion. The stock had been halted after falling 60%. Board members were resigning hourly. Class action lawsuits were being filed. David called just before midnight. "You need to see this email. Marcus tried to transfer $50 million to a Cayman Islands account this afternoon. Treasury caught it. Forward it to the SEC," I instructed. "And David? Make sure our first quarter numbers are perfect. We're going to be under a microscope after this." "Already done," he assured me. "By the way, the talent acquisition team says we've received over 300 resumes from Harrison International employees since this morning." I wasn't surprised. Good people want to work for good companies. Marcus had forgotten that basic truth. The next morning brought an unexpected call from my father's hospital room in Connecticut. "I saw the news," he said, his voice stronger than it had been in months. "Both sets of news." "Dad," "You did exactly right." He cut me off. The company needed this wake-up call. Marcus needed to be stopped. "I didn't want it to end this way," I admitted. "No, but you were prepared for it. That's what makes you a better leader than your uncle ever was." He paused. "I'm transferring my Harrison International shares to your new company's employee ownership trust." I sat down, stunned. Those shares, nearly 15% of the company, were worth hundreds of millions, even at the currently depressed price. "The workers shouldn't suffer for Marcus's crimes," Dad continued. "This way, they have a choice: stay with what's left of Harrison International or join something new, something better." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you, Dad." "Don't thank me. Just build something worthy of the trust people are placing in you." Over the next week, events moved at lightning speed. Marcus was arrested trying to board a private plane to Venezuela. The SEC appointed an independent monitor to oversee Harrison International. Our new headquarters in Dubai neared completion. Then came the morning I'd been both anticipating and dreading. 1 month to the day after Marcus had fired me, I stood in the lobby of Harrison Tower. Not as an employee, but as a competitor, a creator, a leader in my own right. The security guards, the same ones who had escorted me out, nodded respectfully as I passed. News travels fast in corporate circles. Success commands its own kind of authority. The boardroom looked exactly the same. Mahogany doors, leather chairs, my grandfather's portrait on the wall. But the people were different. Independent directors now, appointed by the shareholders' committee. No more country club cronies. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Harrison," the new board chairman began. "We've asked you here to discuss a possible merger between Harrison International and Harrison Global Partners." I opened my father's journal, drawing strength from his wisdom. "I appreciate the offer, but no. Harrison International needs to clean house, rebuild trust, find its own way forward. Meanwhile, we're creating something new, something that never could have existed within the old structure. Even if we offered you the CEO position?" I smiled, thinking of my office in Dubai, overlooking the future. I already have a company to run. Later that day, I visited my father in the hospital. His room was filled with flowers, not from family or social climbers, but from employees, clients, and partners who remembered how he'd run the company. "You saw the board?" he asked. I nodded. "They wanted a merger." I declined. "Good." He pointed to the small table beside his bed. "That came for you this morning." A simple envelope lay there, addressed to me in my grandfather's distinctive handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper, dated just before his death. My dearest Alexandra, if you're reading this, then everything I feared about Marcus has come to pass, and everything I hoped for in you has proven true. Power corrupts, but purpose sustains. Never forget the difference. Your loving grandfather, William Harrison. I folded the letter carefully, tucking it into the journal beside my father's bed. The Saudi contracts begin next month, I told him. We're revolutionizing how infrastructure projects are developed in the region. Sustainable technology, local partnerships, complete transparency. Everything the company should have been, he nodded. Everything it will be, I corrected, just with a different name and a better foundation. 1 year later, I stood on the stage at the Middle East Energy Conference, accepting the Innovation in Sustainable Development Award. Harrison Global Partners had exceeded every projection, not just in profits, but in positive impact. Marcus watched the ceremony on a prison television, serving year one of a 15-year sentence for securities fraud. The company he tried to steal had collapsed under the weight of his crimes, but its people had found new homes, new purposes, new futures. As I looked out over the audience, faces from a dozen countries, cultures, and backgrounds, I saw not just business success, but my grandfather's vision reborn. Power used wisely, profit with principle, purpose aligned with progress. Business is never just about money, I told them. It's about legacy, about the kind of world we help create. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead us to our best opportunities. Sometimes losing everything shows us what we're truly meant to build. My silver pendant lay in a desk drawer back in Dubai, its recorded evidence never needed. Marcus had destroyed himself more thoroughly than any exposure could have managed. I'd learned my father's lesson well. Patience is more powerful than revenge. That evening, watching the sun set over the Persian Gulf from my office, I opened my grandfather's old leather portfolio, now containing contracts and proposals for the next phase of Harrison Global Partners' expansion. The future stretched out before us, bright with possibility. My phone buzzed. Prince Abdullah's number. Ready to discuss the African expansion? I smiled, reaching for my father's journal. Time to write the next chapter. Marcus had tried to end my story. Instead, he'd helped me begin a better one. Sometimes that's how legacy works, not passing down what was, but building what should be. The Harrison name still stood for something in the business world, just not what Marcus had tried to make it. Something better, something lasting, something true. And that was the greatest victory of all.